Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be responding to 5 of the most common objections to presuppositional apologetics. So grab a cigar and let's dive in. The first objection I'll be addressing, and it's probably one of the most common ones, is that presuppositional apologetics rests on the logical fallacy of petitio principii, or begging the question. This objection comes up because Van Tillian presuppositionalists usually claim to presuppose the entire Christian worldview, including things like the existence of God and the truth of the Bible, in all their dealings with the unbelieving skeptic. The problem, as the objection goes, is that the truth of Christianity is the very subject of debate, and so it is question-begging to presuppose the truth of Christianity. To respond to this objection, we have to point out that the Van Tillian believes a neutral approach to the question of the existence of God is impossible. That is, one either presupposes the truth or falsity of Christianity. There can be no middle ground. If this is the case, then both the Christian and unbeliever cannot avoid begging crucial questions. There are various arguments the Van Tillian can provide for his claim that neutrality is impossible, but the quickest one is to argue that the Christian doctrine of the universal knowledge of God entails that no person can be neutral with respect to the Christian God, and thus the very suggestion of the possibility of neutrality is equivalent to the rejection of the truth of Christianity. In other words, neutrality is self-defeating. The critic may at this point raise the further objection that just because begging the question is unavoidable, it does not mean that it is not fallacious. To this, the Van Tillian may point out that begging the question is not unavoidable. The Christian and unbeliever only beg the question when they attempt to criticize each other using assumptions which are external to the worldview they are criticizing. An internal critique does not fall prey to fallacious question begging. It is this internal examination of the respective worldviews on offer that the presuppositionalist proposes as the best way to rationally resolve the disagreement between Christian and unbeliever. The next objection to be addressed is the objection that presuppositional apologetics can be used for any religion. The idea here is that it is theoretically possible for the proponent of any religion to make the same claims that the presuppositionalist Christian makes, and this relativism renders a presuppositional approach to apologetics ineffective. The response here is that it is simply false that presuppositional apologetics leads to religious relativism. A proponent of a non-Christian religion using presuppositional apologetics would simply be recognizing that neutrality is impossible. The debate would ultimately be settled by an internal examination of the worldviews on offer. The Van Tillian simply needs to vindicate his worldview by a transcendental refutation of the alternative. It just so happens that the alternative in this case is the religious variety of unbelief. A Van Tillian with a proper understanding of transcendental argumentation would have no problem with so-called religious presuppositionalism. The next objection I'll be addressing is the objection that presuppositionalism confuses epistemology and ontology. What is usually meant by this is that Van Tillians mistakenly conflate God as the metaphysical starting point of knowledge and God as the epistemological starting point of knowledge. Objectors will often claim that God is the starting point of knowledge, metaphysically speaking, because as creator, we wouldn't exist without him. But God cannot be the epistemological starting point because there are numerous other facts that must be known before we can know God. In responding to this objection, we must point out two things. The first is the distinction between proximate and ultimate starting points. I made a whole video on that which addresses this very objection. You can check it out through the link in the description. The second thing we must point out is that in virtue of being created in the image of God, in a sense, man is epistemologically tied to God. That is, the entirety of man's immediate environment, including his own consciousness and psyche, are designed to grant him knowledge of God. As such, man cannot help but start with God in epistemology. Everything about man and his immediate environment is controlled by God. Self-consciousness is God consciousness. No single thought can be thought without reference to God. Hence, God is both the metaphysical and epistemological starting point. Another common objection raised against Van Tillen's presuppositionalism is that it rejects knowledge of God through the created order, which Scripture clearly affirms. The reason this objection is raised is because Van Tillens are strongly opposed to the natural theology employed by traditional apologetic approaches. The underlying assumption behind this objection is that natural theology is equivalent to natural revelation, but that is simply not the case. Knowledge of God from the created order, as taught in Scripture, is gained by something like a direct apprehension, rather than philosophical argument. When the psalmist says that the heavens declare the glory of God, he's not talking about an inference that only the philosophically inclined can make. Rather, the created order provides a testimony to the existence and power of God that all men can grasp. Furthermore, Van Tillens are not opposed to natural theology in itself. Rather, we take issue with a pre-dogmatic use of natural theology. That is, a natural theology that is conceived of as independent of and fundamental to revealed theology. Revelation, both natural and special, forms the basis for all our arguments and inferences about God. The final objection that I'll be addressing is the objection that presuppositional apologetics rejects the use of evidence in making the case for Christianity. This objection arises because Van Tillens are staunch critics of traditional apologetics, which includes an evidential approach to arguing for Christianity. The response is that what the Van Tillen presuppositionalist rejects isn't the use of evidence, but rather the assumption of the possibility of neutrality that is made by evidential apologists when they present evidence to the unbeliever. Due to the conflicting worldviews held by Christian and unbeliever, an appeal to facts or evidence would necessarily be insufficient to settle the dispute between them. The evidential apologist presents his evidence with the assumption that the unbeliever will give Christianity a fair hearing, but that is a naive assumption. The unbeliever has a presuppositional predisposition to the falsity of Christian theism. Therefore, all facts will be interpreted according to this biased framework. What the Van Tillen is saying is that an evidential case for Christianity is useless without an examination and refutation of the underlying philosophical framework that governs the unbeliever's interpretation of the facts. In summary, presuppositionalism does not reject an evidential case for Christianity. It rejects an evidential case that naively ignores the role of worldviews in the interpretation of evidence. That's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like and comment what videos you'd like to see in the future. Also, do not forget to subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys next time.